I'm standing in front of Independence Hall, where 250 years ago, on July 4th, 1776, the Declaration of Independence was signed and the American Revolution was born. When the Founding Fathers envisioned their new country, they outlined fundamental rights for citizens: life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So how did these ideals hold up 250 years later?
For our purposes, a banned book is defined as any book where access is formally restricted.
A banned book has actually been removed from the shelves. A challenged book may not have been removed, but somebody has voiced objection to it.
I collected 25 of the most commonly banned books throughout the country. These make up only 1% of all the unique titles that were challenged last year alone. In 1982, the Supreme Court ruled on a case called Island Tree School District v. Pico.
As Justice Harry Blackmun has written, school officials may not remove books for the purpose of restricting access to the political ideas or social perspectives discussed in them.
However, books that were pornographic or profane could still be removed.
Unfortunately, it's not clear where to draw the line. Is this pornographic? What about this? Even though this case happened over 50 years ago, there is still an ongoing debate over banned books.
If you believe in our objectives, which is to bring people and materials, ideas together through libraries, then you're welcome to join the American Library Association.
Shame on the American Library Association for calling this mother a censor, for using one of the hated terms in our society today against a mother who wanted to stand up for the well-being of her daughter.
Across the country, parental rights advocacy groups have formed, defending the ability for parents to instill religious values in their children without interference. The most prominent of these groups is Moms for Liberty. We talked to Rosalind Hanson, the Montgomery County representative.
A narrative has been created that there are these bans on books, and that's not the case. Parents advocating for what they want their children to or to not read does not mean that a book can't be written, printed, published, sold, or put in schools.
Parents will come up to the school board, they'll ban a book in a certain county, but they don't ban the book for the entirety of the state.
That's because most parents are trying to control the content visible for their children, not for everyone. In fact, most parents choose to use less restrictive measures, such as age restrictions or opt-outs. Recently, Mohammed v. Taylor, a case that occurred in Montgomery County after a family was denied the right to opt their child out of a book, ruled that parents countrywide do have the right to opt-outs.
And here, they're not asking you to change what's taught in the classroom. They're only seeking to be able to walk out so the parents don't have their children exposed to these things that are contrary to their own beliefs.
However, individual opt-outs are not always so simple.
I think that seems pretty infeasible, that every time this particular kind of book comes out, we have to start letting people leave the classroom.
Even though very few families actually utilize the right to opt out, when they do, schools have to provide additional resources, materials, and supervision. This can cause many schools to stop using controversial titles.
Sometimes it just takes that one book. And if that one book is the book that somebody's challenging and it can't be on the shelf, that's where, as a librarian, I feel like it's the worst part of it. Like, you just feel like you're stopping me from doing what I'm here to do. And I think for kids, it stops them from having that feeling of somebody sees me.
But I remember being in elementary school and middle school and reading books, and you really wouldn't, a lot of the books, you don't really realize it, but a lot of them don't really have a lot of representation. A lot of the main characters tend to be white. They tend to be, they tend to be, the same person.
And even though some bans come from individuals, the majority come from organized advocacy groups and school boards.
They tend to target large sets of books at once, and in 2022, almost half of these books were in public libraries.
There are books that counter my religion. There are books that counter my gender expression and romantic orientation. But I will defend those books, because if I don't, then I don't really care about free speech. I only care about the speech that meets my personal goals. And once we do that, then censorship is a hammer looking for a nail, and anybody gets to swing it.
In 2023, residents of Llano County, Texas sued the public library system over the removal of 17 books from the public library.
The case reached the Fifth Circuit, which ruled that books in public libraries are government speech and therefore not protected by the First Amendment.
When the Supreme Court declined to hear the case in December of 2025, the ruling became official.
Time goes on, and book restrictions fluctuate as political power shifts. During COVID, book banning increased as parents became more involved in their children's education. Post-COVID, this trend has begun to subside.
If you're banning books from things of different topics that you may disagree with, you're censoring a whole community, and people can learn from that, and that's why people read.
I think people who challenge books sort of inherently understand how powerful they are, because if they weren't powerful, if they weren't influential, they wouldn't need to be challenged.
Reading is about liberty, the freedom to be informed, to understand where you come from, to love who you love. But equally as important is freedom of religion, which allows families to pass down values and traditions.
When the founders wrote the Declaration of Independence, they did not have all the answers. There is no objective solution to the balance of freedom.
The only thing we can do is continue to speak up, protecting the future of our country as a nation for the people, by the people.